and we'll start from here. Depends. Again, still I'm waiting for Bryan. Bryan's setting up as we speak, so looking forward to getting that going. But like I had said just a moment ago, I getting everything ready. Hopefully everyone's had a good week so far and been productive. Hopefully, from last episode we went over Dave Ramsey's 5 things that I hope you get wealthy. So hopefully you've got something out of that. Maybe you've listened to it multiple times, maybe not. But we will move on as we do with Moving with Life.
Yo.
What's up, bro? How you
Down.
doing? Chilling right now. Dude, actually, it's funny. So just to kick things off, can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going. We're fucking recording this thing. So so I've been trying to figure out how to go about content, because I told you that there's certain people. I've told you that certain people are like listening intent. Like certain people are starting to listen to like from episode 1. I was like, oh shit, like like what did I say? That's how I felt kind of these past like 3 weeks or so. I was like, man, what did I say?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully nothing trivial, but just like hopefully like it's good, right? Obviously. Anyways, but what I actually want to start with was, and I don't know how this is just literally jumping into it, but how good I don't know, it's just at the front of my head, but how good is Heath Ledger as the Joker? I don't know. I just want to jump into that just to even if we touch base for literally a minute, but I hadn't seen The Dark Knight in so long. But we know, I mean, and I forgot what you were going through, and then we were talking about, if you're good at something, never do it for free. That's one of the main Joker quotes whenever we were talking a few days ago, and in that I was like, man, I just watched The Dark Knight. I just watched it once all the way through, and I hadn't seen it in a while, because I had it on DVD, but I didn't have it. Now I have it digitally. But it's like, man, how good. And I was actually waiting. I was actually gonna text you. I'm like, dude, how good is Heath Ledger as the Joker? I'm like, I'll just wait. We're figuring this out, and I'm like, man, we'll just wait and use it as a talking point for the opening of our conversation today.
Yeah.
Do you
want me to answer? Or?
I don't know if you have any input, but okay, I can start with the questions. Like, do you remember going to watch it, or when did you go to watch it? How long did you wait? Did you watch it opening night? I remember vividly like going to watch it opening night at midnight. Whatever. I think it came out in 2008 or 2009.
Yeah. I don't remember. I actually don't remember the first time I saw it was while it was out in theaters, or if I watched it later on, on DVD somewhere. Yeah. I don't remember, but I know that I've watched it several times.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And it just feels like each time is better than the last, because I don't know. I don't know if it has to deal with like my brain or my maturity, but it's like you catch kind of like new or different things each time. And I know that one of the things, maybe not every time, but one of the aspects of the movie is catching like things that the Joker does, or his logic or lack thereof, like right. Why he does certain things. And in the movie, I think there's a point or two where he shows that sometimes, there is no logic, there is no actual objective other than kind of like just screw the system or to disrupt the system. And I guess,
yeah,
what I mean?
Yeah.
So yes, Heath Ledger plays a very, very good Joker, and aside from like the Joker in this case kind of being well written as a character, like Heath Ledger really like outdoes himself playing him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And another thing, it's funny because after seeing The Dark Knight, I forgot it was an older movie. I forgot what it's called. I forgot what it's called. But it was an older movie, and it wasn't The Night, because Knight's Tale is. I don't know. Have you seen The Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger in it?
Maybe once, and I don't remember if I saw it in from start to finish.
Okay, that one
Um,
was actually my first introduction to Heath Ledger because he was very young and not knowing now how long he had already been acting. This because dude, my cousin, which cousin, but he had it on VHS, bro. That's how thrown back that movie is. And I remember seeing it on VHS where I was like,
yeah,
I remember, and I was like,
yeah,
oh, like I like the movie. It's a good story. The whole like jousting and night, night, and
yeah,
then they incorporate the love story behind, attached to it. But that was a long time ago. And then again, I was watching this other movie. It was again, it ended up tying into like I think it tied into a love story, and I remember. Anyways, and to go from that and seeing him and like because you obviously as the Joker, he was like he had the makeup, he had the character. Obviously, he's from wherever he's at, right? But he has because he has an accent, right? I don't know where he's at originally, where he's from originally, but
yeah.
to then have that to have an American accent technically, and then to play the Joker, where it's like
Like a
it's like
psycho American accent.
yeah, dude, yeah, yeah. The perfect psychotic, patient. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, I don't know.
yeah.
It's just going from that no makeup. He always had that long hair. I never saw him. Okay, I haven't
Mhm.
seen every movie he's made, but I've seen a few movies that he's made now, and or that he had made. It sucks that what happened after the Joker, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but he always had long hair. That was part of like his thing. Was always having the long
Mhm.
hair. Making it part of who he was as a character. Even in freaking Knight's Tale, I think even in Knight's Tale, he had the long hair. He was that was still a part of his character. Another
Yeah.
thing, I forgot. The guy who played Two-Face in that movie, I forgot his name. But
Oh yeah.
I forgot his name. Anyways, so there was another.
Yeah. I don't remember either.
Right. It's like what the guy who played who ended up being Harvey Two-Face, right?
Everybody else
In
was
the Dark
just
Knight.
under Heath Ledger's shadow.
Right. Seriously. But there was I may or may not have saved it, but it's too late now because I we're here. But he was talking post movie, and I think they were in the sequence of this like interview, whatever. They were talking about Heath Ledger, and it seemed like they were paying like some type of tribute, and that he's like, yeah, he's like, Heath never broke character. He's like, he come over and he'd do something as the Joker, like off camera,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
and then I don't know if it was a director or if Heath said as the Joker, like, no, like I think they had a scene where they were talking about when they were in the hospital, and a lot of that was I
Oh
think
yeah.
was like ad lib stuff, like Heath Ledger ran with it, and like the flipping the
Mhm.
coin, and hey, it's nothing personal, like a lot of that, and like the high, like
Yeah.
all of that was a lot of like ad lib that Heath Ledger just took over that scene, and that was all him. I was like, man, and that's where I think got my I got myself over the hill of like, okay, I'm just gonna freaking buy the Dark Knight and I'm gonna watch it tonight and watch it. And it's like, man, it's so good. I think also because what's drawn me to that is like the artistry, and I've been getting really into comedy, but like between like when me and you have been talking, um, besides all the honestly, besides all the other like BS fun stuff we talk about, but like I feel like we've been tailing back to a lot of business of lately, and I think some of it does tail to like because you tell me the thing about like overlanding, and it's not necessarily business related, but it's like living and life related. So it's like
Mhm.
to have that balance, and then seeing that type of artistry, and it's like that's that making the comment, him making it like this is and I can only imagine, because imagine that, dude, like imagine working with someone, because I can't imagine like working with someone and and it's only for a short amount of time because it's a movie, and then because after that you're gonna be done, but then and that's where it actually ended, preemptively. It shouldn't have, not that the movie should have continued or a part two with Heath Ledger, but like it still stopped, Heath Ledger, like because he's no longer here.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just interesting. It's just like, I don't know, it just feels very not relatable, but just very congruent with like us and the way things are going. um, One thing I did want to bring up also, because I actually, which one did I listen to? I listened to, no, I sent you the text, because there was that girl guitar player who played that secondhand serenade song,
Oh yeah.
and I was like, bruh, that took me straight back. So our friend, I'm gonna call him Jay, because who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I mean now I mean I feel like we're at a crossing section where it's like, hey, what's he up to now? Like, I feel like it's some type of time, like it's time, like, um, maybe when I go home again, which is gonna be like late, it's not gonna be anytime soon. So like, but anyways, but listening to that dude took me straight to like all the times we had at his, like when we were at his place, all of us, dude, like
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
it
The
just
first
that.
the first memory that popped up was being in his car, like with like, I don't know, there was that specific song
Mhm.
or another one, because we listened to like 3 albums of that guy.
And we didn't even, okay, I didn't know
But
about
yeah,
him. I didn't know about Secondhand
mm,
Serenade until then.
yeah, I don't think so either. I think he introduced me to his music. But yeah, when I heard it from that video that you sent me, it took me straight back to like one specific memory. We were
Mm.
in his car, and that music just blasting, and us like just kind of like screaming at the top of our lungs
Yeah,
like
dude. Yeah,
along.
yeah.
I won't call it singing, but
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
trying like,
Yeah, no,
but
God, singing.
that's how much we like felt the music.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah,
like,
because
oh man.
yeah,
Yeah, because it took me
it's good
straight back,
music.
dude. This, and I actually had this conversation with one of my clerks because she was like, "You have a very good memory," because we had an incident happen, and it was like, "Oh yeah, it was this and this is what happened. This is the times and whatever." And she's like, "Oh, you have a very good." I'm like, "Well, I feel like I didn't even bring up the podcast, and like because I feel like these conversations and recording them and then listening to them later, it helps with that memory. Just it helps me with my,
Mhm.
when
Oh
I'm
yeah,
out just living, and the I still remember the first. So I don't remember the details. Okay, I don't remember every single detail, but I still remember literally texting my mom because I think uh Eric, Eric. So I couldn't think of a quick nickname for like Jay. I was gonna say E, but like that's dumb. Anyways, but I remember he invited me to Jay's house, and I was like, okay, and I said okay, cool, because we had like because we were all in the same grade, obviously. But I was like, okay, cool, like I don't see a problem with it. He seems like a cool guy. Like I already knew, obviously, I already knew you. So I knew, I'm like, oh, you're going. Eric's going. I'm like, yeah, seems like a good deal. And I remember mom's like, what? What do you mean you're like? She was freaking out. Like I'll never forget. She was freaking out. It's like, tell his parents to call me. And like she's like, who? I go, man, no, it's just a friend. We're gonna hang out. It was like Friday night or whatever night. It was like obviously probably a Friday night
yeah,
because I'm assuming there was no band competition going. There was nothing, no competition going on because
yeah,
that's the only time we're gonna have time off. Um, but I remember that because I remember like literally we were practicing part for like fucking All Valley or some stupid thing. And
mhm.
I still don't like. It still gives me like anxiety, like thinking about like all that stuff. But I still remember that. And then my mom talking to his mom, and then we went, and that was it. Like it was like okay, cool. And then that was like our high school. Dude, that was our like the beginning for me of like high school. Like that's how it started. Was like
Yeah,
going over and then getting introduced to like freaking Secondhand Serenade and so much music that I was introduced. Like maybe I'd heard it on the radio, but I was so far into country. Like because I was learning guitar, like on my own. I was learning guitar, and like I was just so engulfed in country that this music that's like, oh, this guy sings and he does his own harmonies and he plays it's just him and an acoustic fucking guitar, and it's like, man.
yeah,
Yeah, that's how vivid that memory is. That ties into when I heard that covers. I'm like, man, she's really good. But I'm like, but it's taking you back like fucking 15 years. It's taking you like forever ago. It's
yeah,
taking
bro.
so far back.
Yeah, that caught me off guard. I hadn't even listened to that music like in a while, like
Yeah.
a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then for some reason, one of his songs started playing in the car right now on my way home, and I was like, why?
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
I mean,
Interesting.
I don't know. I'll take
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. For sure. And it's funny because like I've mentioned this where like I have my ups and my downs, and I've mentioned it as such as like sometimes my highs are so high that even like if I go so if my low is here, right, and I
Mhm.
go so high that even going this low, like it feels significant to me. And so like I actually
Yeah.
avoid some of that type of music because the way he writes, it's a lot of heartbreak, a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
acoustic, like just this deep,
Very
deep heartbreak that
melancholic.
yeah, dude. It's like I try not to because I'll feel fine, and then like let's say 2-3 days later is when I feel that like just coming like, oh, I can't freaking do that. I'm like I've been on
Feel
Alpha Brain.
heavy, like
Yeah,
oh.
yeah. It's like it's just like I feel the weight of it. It's like man, like and so I actively avoid a lot of that music that we actually listen to, for a long time because of
Yeah.
where it puts me on an emotional state. It's like, or as a part of my emotional state, it just puts me at a level. It's like, okay, I can't afford that for myself right now. Like I feel like I'm planning things and doing things. And that was part of us getting on, because there's some stuff I want to talk about like offline, but I wanted to record and just kind of have a conversation. We last time we talked via this was January 4th. I looked it up, and I actually listened to that to see if like, okay, did I miss anything specific that I was like, we can like dive into, or is there new stuff that we've kind of brought up? I'm like, okay, I know we can talk about this and just record it and have a conversation about it. But it's from January 4th to now. It's like, yeah, like like that's some music where it's like, yeah, and then I noticed I was getting like really into that like that style music, and I was like, okay, I had to get out for a little while. And again, like I said,
I didn't.
Like,
and
fair enough.
then the song that you sent me, I listened to like halfway through the song, and I was like, yep, I remember. I didn't finish it, and I didn't go look for it anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like we're probably on the same boat as far as like sometimes I guess you want the blinders on, and then your highs are so high that it might take you off track, or it might
you come down even like 2-3 points and you're like, oh, it
way.
just kind of like just weighs on you. It's like,
yeah.
And the thing is, the funny thing is, because we appreciate the music, like for one, it takes us, it's nostalgic because it reminds us, it takes us, we have all these memories tied into this music. The other day, actually, I had another buddy at work, and he started playing Michael Bublé. I'm like, what the hell are you doing playing with Michael Bublé? And so that took me back to, because dude, the first time I was introduced, that was 2007, which is when we played Moondance as part of the show. And that was my introduction to Michael Bublé. And then Joe, I just said his name. So Joe opened up fuck that. Anyways, so that just opened up a new thing, like it was like Secondhand Serenade and all that stuff. And then Michael Bublé is like, who the hell is this? Like that's how I felt. Looking back, I knew why, because I was so engulfed into the country. But I was like, hearing Michael Bublé, and he had already had a lot of these songs that are my favorites anyways. It's like, oh my, and then big band, not to mention like Maynard, and then it makes me think about like Maynard Ferguson and all stuff that Joe, like you guys listen, because you guys were all in jazz band, right?
Yeah.
And so it just took me, and I'll never forget, because my mom wanted me to play guitar. Because I already played guitar. She's like, why aren't you in the jazz? I'm like, because jazz is, for me, I just want to sit. I just want to sit and listen to it. And even to this day, like, I don't mind a jazz song. It's like, just let me sit and listen to it. Let me sit and listen to it. Because it's like, I play all the, I know this buku amount of fucking country music. I learned some rock music, some 70s rock, I have my niche of guitar songs that I like, where it's like jazz music's like, no, I hear it and I just want to listen. Half the time I don't even want to hear a damn guitar solo. I just want to hear the band playing. I just want to hear the band playing, and the saxophones and the clarinets and trombones, trumpets, whatever, all these things that come about, come with jazz music.
Same. And that's why like my favorite type of jazz is big band, because you have like the horns versus like a trio where it's like, a sax, bass, and drum set or something,
it's a little too much, like too much of a flow versus like just in and out,
or even I dare to say that it's too like minimal, like I want to feel like engulfed in sound, and then a sax doesn't, like one sax doesn't quite fill the room the same way,
right.
If it's a solo, yes, you appreciate a solo, you hear the background music and then the solo just riffing off,
right,
but you want to hear those like big hits, and then also the dynamic, being able to hear a full band kind of like blow up the room and then just kind of like take it down, like I don't know, there's just something about it. And then sometimes you have your solis where it's the whole section just playing the same thing, but it's an entire section, so you get that variety of the different parts within the same group of instruments. It's more satisfying, I guess, more fulfilling.
Fulfilling is a good word. Yeah. And I don't know, like as we keep diving into like the fact that secondhand, I'm like, what? Because again, I hadn't listened to it in so long. It's like it just took me down this rabbit hole of things that just opened up. I hadn't been down that mental like road in so long, And it's not that, and it's 10
funny years.
Dude, it's been 10 years since we graduated. Last time, okay.
I didn't want to say 10 plus, but 10 plus.
And it's funny because we actually brought this we got to this point, the last conversation we had for the podcast, as far as like, it's been, I talk about 2013 and some of these people were still like they were freshmen at 2013 or 2014, so stuff like that, and or sophomore, whatever, it don't matter. Well, but we're talking about like high school. It's like, man, that was so long ago. Another thing that okay, here's a funny financially depressing note is like, in 5 years, I just looked it up. So in 5 years, Bitcoin has gone up 14,000%.
Oh yeah.
And
don't remind me.
Bro. Dude, because I'm actively investing, and and the thing is, I get paid this week, so I'm working on this basically my next run of capital to put into the market and whatnot. And I was looking at crypto and stuff like that, and now I always check the day just to see where it's at today, but then I check the 1 month, 1 year, and then 5 year. Those are the timelines that I use to look into for investing. That's what I'm doing right now at the moment, because it's quicker. It gives me a quick rundown of like where the company's going, how the company's doing. Every once in a while, if I look down to see if there's any articles, because like on Yahoo Finance, there'll be like articles like based on the company.
Right.
And so if the headliner is appealing to me, then I'll click into it. If it's not, then I won't. But anyways, so earlier, just a while ago, maybe an hour ago, I was looking at Bitcoin, and because I have some, but it's like, did I send you the meme of like it was like, I think, was it Bart Simpson, or it was a cartoon meme, and it's like when your crypto has gone up 169%, and then you only own like 0.002% of like Bitcoin, or like 0.002 of a share of Bitcoin. Dude, it's gone up.
Yep.
Like I said, it's 14,000%, and then it's something like $59,000 in per Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's one thing I was telling my buddy. I was talking to him.
One Bitcoin is $60,000.
Exactly. And I told him, like, dude, like, you may not understand what this means yet, but like the matter of fact of like, that's one. So for the people who own 10, like that's a lot. It's like a lot of money. Yeah. It's like you have to add 2 zeros to that to see that's how much they have in their account. It's like,
and I've heard claims that it's gonna go to like $1 million. Who knows? Hopefully, because I left $9 in there like 3 years ago. So I just now realized that those $9 are 40, and I hate to think of how much it could be had I put more in.
Bro. Yeah.
But, no, yeah. I mean, that was never a strategy. I just forgot. It was something that I played around with when the hype was there.
Yeah.
And I just forgot about it. And then when I actually remembered, I was like, hey, let me go check on it. It's multiplied, X times whatever. But I think, and I was like, damn it, like, what if? But I mean, that's a natural thought in any type of investment. You're like, damn it, like when you realize it did better than you ever could have thought, but you didn't, buy in. And it's like, you can't get on it. But
right. And that's a cool thing. Like, 'cause I feel like I feel like I'm getting better at it, but I definitely feel like between me and you, like, we say that what if, and I think we've done better now as we've gone older, obviously. But even in the past 4 months, I feel like we say what if, but then we're like, but it's not that, and we're gonna now pursue a new thing in the same category or whatever. Like we're gonna get to that.
I'm just a curious person, so I like to think of like scenarios almost for pure entertainment, and then get over it.
Yeah.
Back to business type of deal.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just back to business. Like, okay, gotta go back to, like, I'm going back to work. Or in that case,
actually happening, not what could have.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what, and some advice for me, it's not even like a whole holistic like stoicism, like mind thing for that situation, but it's like, okay, it's not that. It's like, what, just getting back to just your day. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna allow myself to dwell. Maybe if I listen to more Secondhand Serenade, I might. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. That's funny. And so actually right now, as you were texting me that you're driving back and getting ready so we can do this thing. I started listening to our very first one, which Eddie was on there, our very first episode. And I only got like 10 minutes in or so, maybe even less. But man, we mentioned age then, and we were 25, 26 when that started. And I don't know why that feels so long ago, man. That feels so long ago. And I don't even know why I want to bring it, but I made a note about it. I'm like, I'm just going to bring it up, see where it goes. It might not go anywhere. But it's like, man, it feels so long ago. Like,
As far as the age, like when you mention the age, it doesn't automatically feel like a long time ago. But when I think back that memory of recording that first episode, it does feel like it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like
and
it was longer.
Yeah. And it was only
You know what I mean?
2017.
Like,
it was only 2017. It was 4 years ago. I mean, this past.
well,
So
yeah.
it's funny because like when we recorded this past January, that marked the 4 year. I think by the time that episode came out, or around that time that me and you recorded, that was like the mark that was a marking range of like the 4 year mark for moving with life has been for the past 4 years. I mean, technically 2019 was really like not much content because I was literally unavailable to make these episodes, but I feel like now, and this is another thing that I want to dive into now, and I'll have to bring up some of the details because I'm not gonna mention the details on here, but like what moving with life is at the moment, and then stuff that like I feel like my brain is finally firing on all cylinders, which why I can't dive into too much secondhand serenade. Like it's like I do have like at the moment I have these blinders on where it's like, oh, I think I can do X, A, B, C, and D, and maybe I can't do them right now, but if I can start planning and involving certain parties into this thing, I think I'll be able to run with it. Versus like then it's like I was kind of going off the cuff a little much. It's not that I would take it back because I have every single episode's up, and it turned into from where I think episode 1, 2, and maybe 1 through 5. I think the first 4 or 5 episodes I would like edit, and not that I would cut out I cut out I think a few stories on episode 5 because that was with Gonzo, and there was a few deep stuff that we went into. Eventually though, I posted like everything as far as like the deep stories and stuff like that we went over. But my point is that I would cut out all the dead space because there was like some like dead space there, and eventually turned into like, well, how about I just do better, and I didn't phrase it like that or word it like that, but it was like, well, there shouldn't be dead space, and I think a lot of it came from the aspiration of like Jocko, Joe Rogan, these podcasts, Tim Ferriss, like their phrasing and their questions and just their flow, the ability to flow. Yeah. Okay, hey, how about I just not suck? And not that I didn't feel like I did, but it's like I just need to up it a level. As far as conversation, I need to up it a level so that there is no dead space. Because some of those times, the editing would turn into like I would lose the whole fucking file, like because I would like. Do you remember? Okay, there's one time that it happened, never happened again, but it was one time I had you and Eddie, and I said, hey guys, can you come back or can you come back another day because we need to re-record because I just fucking deleted the stupid thing.
Yeah,
and it was so familiar. Yeah, it only happened once, and it was early on, and you guys were like very okay with it, and it was relieving because it wasn't like it was a. It's not like we were forcing each other to do that. It was just something I want to do, but the matter of fact that I deleted the stupid thing, and I just felt so disappointed. That's like, man. Like, because even now, like I'll bring up where it's like, some of the conversations we're gonna have and we've had, as of late, it's like they're irreplaceable now, in my eyes, because the way me and you work for the most part is like we have a conversation, we kind of move on as we either go every once in a while we go back to in this case second serenade, right? That's the example for now. But my point is like we go back, we will tell back to these things within something that we talked about in the past. But as far as recording it here, like one-to-one, it's like, man, some of these for me they're irreplaceable. Like even when I had a conversation with my mentor, back home, I recorded I didn't record the last time I talked to him because that was in January. But before I left, like home, I recorded and I have it saved for a rainy day. But that's one of those things where I asked him to retell some of the stories he already told me because, like, hey, I want this for later because these stories that I've learned from you, they're irreplaceable to me. Like their value is very high for me, and it's like I'm saving it for a rainy day. I'm saving it for a day that, hey, you know what, I can talk about this now, post, at the moment. But yeah, it's funny. Yeah, just as far as like leaving dead space out, and it's like, man, like how about you just do better?
Just do better.
Just do better. Yeah, it's
And
funny.
not to add insult to injury, but going back to that deleted episode,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
remember that was a good episode.
Exactly, and I was so disappointed. Like I was, because by
Because
the time we were like episode like 9, like we were starting to get into like a good weekly, just a weekly flow once a week.
mhm.
And I think I had you guys come in on a Monday or Tuesday because I posted on Thursdays. Um, and then like I remember editing, and I don't remember I don't remember the details of losing the file, but I said, guys, like I deleted it. Could you guys come in tomorrow or whatever, whatever day before Thursday so we can record again?
Right.
And you guys were like, yeah, no problem, but it happens, like it sucks that it happened, but it happened. So we'll go record another one. And so it's like, fuck. Cause even then it's basically like having to create like a whole new series of thoughts and ideas because I didn't remember because that's the point. That's also a point that I use for podcasting
Yeah.
is like I like, as it wasn't until recently that I started now I'm starting to re-listen to the episodes we've done, and I'm also starting from the beginning. But something like that where as we continued through the podcast, I started making notes in a journal, and now I'm back to that. So it's not like, okay, I have a direction of just things that either are relevant lately. For myself, I've been doing like I've been finding stuff like on Instagram and YouTube where it's like, oh, the top 5 things, and then giving not my critique, but just giving my point of view on like the top 5 things, like for Monday, because this is gonna come out Thursday. So for today, technically, I did Dave Ramsey's 5 things to become wealthy. So that's the 5 things for this, the 8 things for that. I found this really good um, Instagram profile. It's called Live Your Impossible. And I've had them like attached to like the show notes and stuff for the episode I've done. But like the one of the other ones was 8 things an overthinker needs to know. That was one of the episodes for last week. And it's like, so I've been doing that, but now I have some direction. But going back to that, it's like it was a good episode. And now like not having the ability, in my opinion, not having the ability to think yet about creating like a whole new episode. It's like, yeah, I was like, fuck, like, and at that time, because we were doing 2-hour episodes, we weren't doing it an hour and a half. I'm doing 30-minute episodes right now on my own. The last one me and you did was an hour and a half. That was pretty good. But like between 3 of us, like we were knocking out, 2.5 hours of content. And I was getting again
Mhm.
by then I was getting to a point where like it's recorded and it's posted. There's no editing. There's no splicing of dead space. It's like we're flowing, and then okay, we can stop and
Right.
we're done. We're done for the day. Thanks for coming, and we'll continue next week. Yeah, yeah. There's actually another one. I just remember, but this one was. I'm glad he got erased though because we had just done because we had just watched Avengers Endgame. We had just watched Avengers, and I said, "Hey guys, would you guys be down to do a debrief of this?" Because I don't know the details the way you
Yeah.
and Freddie knew the details. So I was like, "Hey, I think this would work because you guys would converse, and I would throw in questions because I genuinely didn't know a lot of the details. And now that I watched the Avengers, the whole series recently, like a few weeks ago. I think I texted you about it, but anyways, it's still barely making more sense to me now. I was like, oh yeah, I do. Okay, now I'm still tying things that we talked about back in 2017, whenever it came out. Anyways,
Yeah.
but after because we started drinking, I think during the episode, and it was chill. Like it wasn't like we were taking shots, but we were drinking. But then I was like,
Right.
we started fucking bullshitting after we were done with that episode, and I recorded that, and I said, hey guys, would you guys be down to record? I think I'll post it because we were using names, we were using everything. And I ended up formatting
No
my
hold
card.
barred.
I ended up formatting the memory card. Now I'm glad I did because maybe it was something we needed to release out and just get rid of it. Because again we were using names and we were fucking just saying everything.
Writing a letter to somebody and then writing a letter to somebody and then just burning it.
Yeah,
Type of thing.
it was definitely one of those. It was definitely one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's like, and it wasn't until recently, like, man, maybe it was a good thing because maybe by now I'd be down to, I'm gonna be bleeping like a bunch of beep and all the names and stuff because I just remember we went for another probably 2 hours because we kept drinking then, and then we were just talking and drinking probably just cheap whiskey and water or whatever, and And that was,
Yeah.
we went for another 2 hours. We did a 4 hours of talking, 2 hours about the Avengers and then 2 hours of bullshit. Oh man.
Yeah.
How's everything else
Good
going
stuff.
for you?
No, sorry, I was still in memory lane.
What part?
No, just thinking back to I guess those times. I don't remember everything that we talked about, like you're saying, post the Avengers talk.
Yeah.
But I do remember that it was like a more unfiltered conversation.
Yeah,
And
100%. Yeah. And it's funny because whenever listeners do get to this episode and be like, "The fuck," I'm like, you're probably better off not hearing
yeah,
this unfiltered. Because I feel like we'll get to that once we get older. I feel like we'll get back to not necessarily that those stories, but like we're gonna get to an unfiltered state of podcasting eventually.
yeah. I
Just
feel like
because,
it usually works out that way. You just not in general, but at least with like stories, you're probably less afraid of risk of what could happen if this story gets out, if this name gets out, if this incident with this person gets out. Like
yeah,
after a while, the longer between the incident and today, uh, the less I think we care about potential repercussions.
yeah.
So
And even then, to add on to that is like I feel like also we realize, oh, it actually wasn't like we were so like fucking naive and young to be so angry about whatever was happening.
oh
And
yeah,
you know what I mean? And we're like, as time goes on, obviously we move on. We try our best like to move on as fast as possible. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it's like there's things in the back of our mind where like that actually bothers us. It's like I was saying like PTS about about fucking All Valley, like all that All Valley. So like it still makes me cringe. Anyways, but
yeah.
as more time goes in between, it's like like what the fuck was wrong? I'm saying this very blatantly about myself, but it's like what the fuck was wrong with me? Like chill, bro. Like telling myself, in the past, like chill, bro. Like chill. Like it's fine.
Yeah, it's probably
Like you
because
can move on now.
as you get older, you see the bigger picture. Like that incident is like it just becomes smaller and smaller and smaller in
Yeah.
the bigger painting.
Yeah.
In
And
the
I think
grand scheme of things.
right. And I think the fact that we know that we were talking very unfiltered and stuff like that, and now it's like the fact that we don't remember. I don't remember any of those stories. I literally don't remember anything. I know more or less who was involved in the unfilteredness, but like the stories themselves, I don't remember. And I think the fact that it shows how insignificant, or it's like, okay, it was important. It's not that it didn't have an impact on the people that were involved in those stories. Okay, it makes sense. But even then, I don't remember any of those stories or what the timeline was of our conversation. But so that just goes to show, like, yeah, we're here now. Like, what the fuck? Like, why are we even still contemplating the anger and whatever, the emotional state that we were in at that time?
Yeah.
However, the alcohol helped, man. Dude, I don't
Always helps.
even drink like that anymore. I mean, obviously my lifestyle's totally changed because of where I'm at and what how I, my work situation. And I've mentioned that, but like, man, like I always think about it now. It's like, man, I don't have any urge for alcohol. Even when I went home, dude, like, yes, I had drinks with you. Like, I had drinks in social, but that's as far as it ever got. And that's the way it's been, even me, here. Because when I wake, I work and then I'm trying to just get my brain just filtering through stuff that I'm interested in to then record right now I'm doing 2 podcasts a week. I started that kind of recently. So I'm doing Mondays and Thursdays. I'm doing podcasts, 2 a week. 2 a week is what I'm doing right now. And then that's what it's investing, the podcast, and then work. That's kind of what I'm doing. I did look up I don't know if I sent you any videos recently because I looked up overlanding. Finally, it took me a couple of days, but there's this one guy who has a 2014 Tacoma, and he has I have a 5-foot bed on mine, and he has a 5-foot bed on his, and he put the camper on, but he has this attachment that rolls out through the tailgate. So if you lower the tailgate, there's an attachment that he'll pull out, and it gives him like an extra like 1.5 foot. So instead of having a 5-foot bed, he said, now I don't know how he gets 6 foot because it's not it's not a foot and a half tailgate. Like I don't know where he gets the extra like
Yeah.
6 inches or so, but he says he goes from a 5-foot bed to a 6-foot 10-inch bed. I was like, the math doesn't make sense. I'm gonna have to buy. I'm gonna have to check, verify myself to see how much extra space the tailgate gives you.
Mhm.
But the matter of fact is that I'll just bring. I mean, we can just go into overlanding. But I saw the thing, and I actually sent the video to my dad. I'm like, hey, I need to do this to my truck. He says for him, he says it only added like 43 pounds, which is not a lot for a whole actual extension, because he uses like diamond
Yeah.
plate on the outside, so he pulls it out and he uses
Mhm.
like diamond plates to like cover the wood that he uses as the frame on the inside.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. How did you find overlanding, or what got you like to
It
look
was
at
in one
hobby?
of those videos. So I mean, ever since I think I've done a little bit of in the past, not overlanding research, but I've always been very mildly into kind of like off-roading things. Like
Yeah,
I've always said, if I were to get a Jeep at some point down the line, it would be strictly to go like off-roading and maybe like crawling, depending on what modifications that entails to the
right,
actual vehicle.
right,
But
right.
I've always been into like basically driving where you shouldn't be driving. So I've always been into kind of like the off-roading stuff. But the overlanding, when I got like a better picture of what that was watching one of the videos on YouTube that sometimes I send to you guys about cars from
Yeah.
that Donut Media channel.
Okay.
So in one of the videos that I watched, I forget uh, what the video was about, but the guy mentioned overlanding as a comparison to say this is not overlanding. Like this is kind of off-roading and this is overlanding. They are not the same. They're kind of like cousins
Yeah.
because overlanding is something similar where like people take their vehicles mostly to go like camping, but they go off trail. Like they go to places where there isn't like a normal trail to get there, and you
Right.
have to take all this gear with you because the point is to kind of like survive out there. So the guy mentioned specifically, he's like, you can look up overlanding, the overlanding hashtag on Instagram, and then I think he posted a couple channels of people that post on YouTube about overlanding.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was look up the hashtag on Instagram, and yeah, and then I saw a bunch of like Tacomas at first, the Jeeps and other vehicles. So that's when I was like, when I saw the Tacomas, I started sending them to you, and I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
just as like some things that to consider, I guess, for your truck,
Hundred
because we
percent.
had talked about like the kind of
The
camping or
camping aspect
surviving in
of
your
just yeah,
vehicle.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
hmm Yeah, so because you and I had talked about that separately, and then I learned what overlanding was, I was like, hey, these things are like pretty much the same
It's what
thing,
we're
or
like
at
literally
least a
talking
lot
about.
of
There's just a word
similarities.
for it now. Yeah, there's just a word for it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just discovered the word for it um, through those like that automotive channel.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, so once I learned that it had a name, I just started. I didn't do too much research, um, but definitely followed the hashtag on Instagram just to see kind of like everybody's rig basically. Like what do people add? How do
When I
they,
heard one of the
how
guys
do
that
they?
right. Go ahead. Go ahead. How do they what?
I was just gonna finish off with I just seen everybody's rig and all the equipment they had on it, all the attachments and add-ons.
Yeah. And it's funny that they call them rigs. I'm like, I guess it is a rig. So for me, my context for a rig is like a semi truck because that's what I grew up around. My dad and my uncles and my
Yeah.
grandpa. So it's like I hear rig and I think 18-wheeler, right? I think semi truck, 18-wheeler. And then I start hearing these guys. So in watching the video that you sent and then diving in myself, 'cause I'm like, I need to make something like this happen and keep it but like a minimalist version. Because you're living in a truck, so that's very
Yeah.
minimalist as it is. But I need to be more minimalist. Is my that's my gut feelings. Like I need to be more minimalist. Like there's some because also like one thing I was actually talking to Frank the other day, and we were on the phone for a minute. He was driving, and we were talking on the phone, and one of the things that I brought up was like if I've learned anything in these past 2 years, like I've learned how to survive like outside on on my own, 100%. Like so when I see some of these movies of like people veterans and whatnot that have moved on and they live their life, like my Mark Wahlberg in The Shooter. Like the whole lifestyle of doing that's like that
Oh
makes
yeah,
total
yeah.
sense to me. It makes total sense to me. Like I 100%. It'd be easy, super super easy to do that. Anyways, so that's why I feel like or maybe I think I can, or maybe I feel like optimistic about being able to be even more minimalist and needing less things, because there's certain things that I know that you can buy at a store that's super cheap. Like he was talking that one of the guys, I have to send you this video, but so it's pretty cool. So on the camper he has this shower, and he puts a like a bike pump to give pressure so he can shower with it. So he has like a little hose. It's a 5 gallon like freaking thing that goes like this across the camper, and he uses it for showers. And he's like, worst case scenario is that if you run out of drinking water, you can use that because it's clean water, so you can use it as drinking water. But for the sake of like,
Yeah.
if you happen to be out and like you just want a quick like just wipe down, there's some wipes that exist that I can get my hands on, that they're shower wipes. And the thing is, they don't smell like chlorine. They don't smell like soap. They're not baby wipes. So they actually clean you. They're pretty well. I would take them out. I take them whenever we go out to the field and stuff. I take them out with me, and they work they work perfectly well. And you feel at least clean. Like you feel pretty clean. Obviously, you hit the hot spots and then you're done. You're not using a whole fucking wipe. You're not doing. You're not using you're not washing your legs and shit. But the point is like, but in thinking about that, I was like, man, and like I'm very comfortable and I don't mind every once in a while. I don't mind like if it's here and there like a hard surface, like I can, we slept on the fucking ground, like it's really not a big deal. Like we sleep in the dirt, and like I would use a rock as like, I would put just a padding over a rock, and I use a rock as my fucking pillow. Like that's what I did. It's very easy to just be, so anyway, I think that's some of my like, I think I can make this even better, in certain situations. Like I think I can.
Yeah.
I think I can make more out of less, and then use even less money to make that happen. But the only thing that I've been very sold on is that attachment, that it's because I have, like I said, I have a 5 foot bed. It's like, man, but if I can add even a foot, even 12 inches, like that'd be money, that'd be money. And so so this guy who follows, so this guy has his page that he covers camping, like just camping in general, right? So it includes overlanding, it includes RVs, people who make their own RVs, stuff like that. And so the first one that I had seen was a while back, and it's funny who texts us. You'll see it here in a bit.
I saw that.
Okay. What's the name? Sorry, truck side. Okay, so this guy he met the Tacoma guy 2 years ago, and he already had that build with with the extension on there, and so I was like, oh yeah, this is my rig so far, blah blah, and then like a year later he had an update. And then he did a recent update, like within the past like 6 months or so. And dude, now he actually, and see, this is where like, I don't know if for me, I don't know if I'd want this, but he found a decent projector, for his MacBook, and it's about the size of a phone, and it has a little tripod. And so when he goes inside the cab, the back, obviously the truck bed, and he'll put a screen over the extension, and he'll put the little, he'll put the projector on the window, the middle window that connects to the truck cab, and he'll show, like he'll watch a movie that's attached to his fucking thing, and like that's pretty cool. Yeah. It's like that's just one of the things for me. Is like, see, that's too much technology for me. Like, though, for me, the point would be to go out for a few days, get away from society and like all this stuff, and then then appreciate appreciate what I have, because I know definitely. When I've gone out, that's one thing I've talked to with my buddies at work. It's like, my best sleep is out in the woods, because I don't have a phone. There's no phone signal, and at the time we're forced, but not really. But even being out there, it's like that was the best time. Even if it was raining, I didn't even care. It's like we're warm, we're dry. It's like it's literally the best, because you're not gonna be bugged. There's no text. There's no light. There's no extra light pollution. It's dark. Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, it was. It's a good time, and it's like, that's for me. That'd be the whole point of overlanding for me. That's what I think I would incorporate. Is like, hey, just bring your phone with you, because obviously there's emergencies. But outside of that,
I wouldn't mind some either technology or some amenities, but I would rather know how to survive off like the bare minimum. But that's just out of like the way my brain works, where I like to know how things work. Like that whole pressurized water with the bike pump.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know that I would that I would go that minimalist, but that's good to know, you know?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, I'll send it because I have it saved because
I
I sent it to
think
my
if
dad.
there
But good, good. No, you think what?
yeah, I think if there was a more efficient or more sophisticated way of getting that pressurized water, I'd probably take it. But it's good to know. It's like, I guess I'll use this example. Like if you have like a little propane like cooktop
Hmm.
where you hook up the propane, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
But if
yeah,
I
yeah.
know how to build a fire from nothing
Nothing.
almost,
Right, right,
and
right. Yeah,
from
yeah,
that, that's good. That's good to know. But
yeah,
I'd probably prefer that like some type of cooktop that's it's
yeah,
easily lit
yeah,
or very easy to light up. Whether you got to carry your propane, whether you got flint and whatever those little starters, but it's good
yeah.
to
Oh,
have
for
that.
sure.
I think.
Yeah, and it's funny because so that's a coma guy. He actually added a tailgate, like gate thing that he rolls out, and he puts his propane burner on that fucking thing now. I haven't watched that video, but I saw like the highlight, I saw like the, you know how like it'll start
Yeah.
previewing without clicking into the video.
Hmm.
I let it play, and it just shows where he rolls it out. It's basically, it's pipe. It's pipe that he just opens it up, and he has this thing, the flap that puts his propane burner on there. So it looks pretty cool. The
I've seen
propane.
something
Good.
similar where they. I was gonna say I've seen something similar where like something pulls out of the bed of the truck, and it's just literally that, just like an extension, and either they use it as just like a working surface, a flat working surface. They have a top on it. But yeah, I think I know what you're talking about because I've also seen trucks that get converted into like to hold more tools.
Mm.
Like whatever the industry is, you just use it for storage of tools. And I saw one where I don't know if it's possible to do it beneath the floor of the bed. It's
Yeah.
just turns into storage space. So you just pull the drawer and there's a bunch of tools in there.
Hmm.
But yeah, all that is it's pretty neat. It's crazy much you can do to a vehicle and add more utility to something that
Yeah.
you thought
Oh, for
already
sure.
was specifically designed for utility.
Yep. Yep. 100%. Hold on one second. I'll have to cut this part of the podcast. So they're texting me about fucking work right now. God damn it. See, it's moments like this that I wish I was drinking, because if I was drinking, then I couldn't go in. Okay, we can
Damn
come
it.
back now to the podcast. But anyways, yeah, the one thing I will wholly appreciate, and this goes for multiple things. We can tie in music, we can tie in these guys that are doing overnight, and they figure out these rigs. They're developing these rigs, and but just the creativity, bro. Like it just blows my. It's like when we talked to you last time on via Zoom. It's like it's crazy what Zoom has been able to turn businesses and at least some type of face-to-face interaction, what they've turned it into, and then the creativity of overlanding. So now you have like these tents, like the big tents that go on the truck bed, and you utilize the rest of the truck bed for like storage and like other things and whatever. And then this guy who actually just puts a canopy, makes an extension. It's like, man, that's some of the stuff. Like, man, like I like to invent. I would like to invent something like
Yeah.
um. Good.
And I think those tents that go over the vehicle are like I think they're probably the more interesting method because the way I've seen them being used is that people will do like a cage over the bed of the truck.
Yep.
So then that tent is on the cab and
Yep.
on the cage over
Yep.
the bed of the truck. But
Yep.
the bed is still open for like
Yeah,
storage
you
or
have
maybe
you have you have the whole
extra.
bed, yeah, available.
Yeah, you have the whole bed accessible, and then you've got like tools and stuff on the cage of the bed that's going around and over the bed, not necessarily in the bed. So it leaves room to for either more storage, the extra sleeping space, whatever. But yeah, it's good stuff, man.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool because what was something else that I've seen recently? Um, those, well, a lot of it has actually because I didn't dive really, but they're like longer episodes like this for that guy, for that Tacoma guy,
Mhm.
because he even created like this burner, and it used to hold candles, and like it was secure in a way that things won't get set on fire. But he ended up getting like these little, like, to me they look like little micro, like glass Coca-Cola bottles, and he would just put like, not candle wax, but like just burn like lantern oil, and then he found some he gave, there's a specific name for these wicks he would use, but he put the oil in there, put the wicks that he would fit, and then he would put four of them. He's like, with that, like, I can heat my truck if it gets to a certain level. Now it's if it gets to freezing, because he's obviously like out in the boonies. He's like,
Yeah.
it's like below, I can just turn on my truck and use a heater, and he has like a covering for the canopy to the truck, so no air will obviously seep in, so it's secured. It's like secured as far as keeping the air out. It's airtight. Airtight. I mean, for
Mhm.
what, as best he could. So he'll turn on the truck if he needs to, if it gets like that cold. But he's like, for the most part, he uses a burner. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I can use, and then like he's like, in the mornings, I'll just like he has like a little thing on top of it, and he'll put like his little thing for coffee. He'll warm up his coffee on there. It's like, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool little things. Like, man,
Nice.
it's like little ideas like that. It's like, man, like, it's like, I don't know, it's just not me. As far as that specific thing, I feel like I will
Yeah.
get to a point where it's like, oh yeah, I think I can develop this thing. But for now, it's like, I think also I'm just so focused on like a few things that's like, I also try to keep there, because like, because then I feel like I could just be changing my mind all the time versus like aiming for something and trying to accomplish things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Next, okay, so
So,
now I'm gonna bring my phone out, so for the actual podcast, but um, and this ties into an idea that, or I guess, and you telling me some of your thoughts on like, what was the last one of the last things you sent me? Um, it had to do with like making an impact, like in back home, and like, are
right.
our ideas good enough to sustain, to make that, or have that, or that intervention in the lifestyles of who, people that we know, and then obviously going beyond that. um
Hmm.
and one thing I'd like to talk about via Xcelligence, because all this for me tied in, but I want to talk about opportunity cost, and you had a post about it. Where is it? I had here it is. Opportunity cost is the value of the next best thing you give up whenever you make a decision. So and you can think about work versus life, whatever that may mean to you, or
Yeah.
buying the most expensive phone versus the cheapest phone, and then, or there's different things obviously, and I want to jump into it, but I'm just reading the slide. It's like, in this next slide, we will explore the opportunity cost of starting your own business. Um, I don't know if you want to pull it up, just so you, because I'd like for you to jump into the second slide, and then we can talk about it for a bit.
Look it up.
Talk about being an employee versus being a business owner, which is very interesting. I think I like it, and it was something that I wanted to bring up um, in our conversation today.
Yeah. So on that slide, the I think what because I was having this conversation with somebody else about owning your own business, and there are people who don't make $1 million in the first month and they want to quit. Like
Mm,
they go from earning potentially, for the sake of a simple scenario, they go from earning $10 an hour, and as soon as and then they quit their job and they start a business, and if they don't make $1 million that first month, they're gonna go back to making $10 an hour, and they just say, well, it didn't work out. Um, so I think that's why I use this scenario to kind of like paint a bigger picture about owning your own business,
mm,
because I think it's expected, should be expected to like earn less or just not as much as you expect at least the first 2 years.
right.
So I think I use this scenario because I wanted to paint the picture like maybe it's gonna seem like you're losing a lot by starting a business if you're looking at the first year or first 2 years.
Mm,
So if you let's say, I think the example here I have, you're earning $50,000 on year one and year two of being an employee, right? But if you started your own business, you'd only be earning half of that. So year one and year two, when you compare being an employee and owning your own business,
Yep.
you think, well, that's a no brainer. I'd rather be an employee, work for somebody else.
Right.
But there's the potential that in year three, four, and five, your business takes off, and maybe that's when you start making, $1 million,
Right.
depending on what you're doing or whatever. And then in year three, four, and five of being an employee, you might get like a customary 2, 3, 4% raise per year, but that's nothing compared to like the potential of how much you could be earning being your own business,
Right.
your business owner. So yeah, I wanted to explore that because sometimes we talk about opportunity cost and we make it real simple, like this versus that. But I don't think that a lot of people, I mean, even me, you don't consider that other time variable too often. Like it might seem like a good opportunity or a good alternative now, but what about down the line? If everything else held constant, how does this look? 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line.
100%. Yep.
So that was the point of putting, because off the bat, if you look at that and then you see 100K as an employee, 50K as a business owner the first 2 years, you'd automatically think, oh well, yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth starting my own business.
Right.
But I
Right.
mean,
Right.
you don't get that kind of success right away. You've got to build traction and uh, get you become more knowledgeable. As with anything, you become more knowledgeable the more you dive into it and the more um, firsthand experience you have, I think.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And so I'm gonna tie into something dealing with a poly, and I'll get into that. But in our conversations that we had so far, I'm like, hey, dude, I just felt like we need to have this conversation. It was time again. And I'm like, hey, I think we're gonna have a Zoom call pretty soon, and we figured out the schedule. Now we're here. But as I was going through your page, I was like, man, I'm like, we can definitely talk about this, because also like I would also like people listening, our listeners, not to feel overwhelmed with the fact that like, oh, it's a business thing only. It's like, no, opportunity cost is you
Yeah.
making dinner and saving $10 right now and using that $10. Let's just say using that $10 for, let's say you're in debt, right? Let's just say you're in debt, and you're, let's say it's one of the extreme cases. Let's say you're $250,000 in debt, but you're still eating you know fast food, even 60% of the time, and then you're cooking 40%. Which, that's good, and it's all healthy and all that stuff. But in the case of money, it's like, well, no, the opportunity cost is like, hey, you have the opportunity to get rid of your debt, even it's slowly, because I feel sometimes where it's like, well, what's the point? What's the point anyways? It's only $10 right now. It's only $15 right now. Like, it's nothing. But if you do if we get into the
Yeah.
math of it, if we get into the math of it, it's like, no, even at
Yeah.
$15 times, let's say 10, just to keep the math simple. Like, I'm not gonna do math, but 15 times 10 is $150. It's $150 that you can put into that debt. That is,
Hmm.
and then you do over time. It's like, at least at least you're paying off the debt. You're getting rid of that. You don't want that anyways. But the money that you think is not significant, I was gonna say not bad, but no, not significant. What's up, everyone? Well, I know it abruptly stopped the video. Had some stuff come up. Well, so I'll briefly bring it up here. Um, Once Bryan gets logged on, he's actively doing that right now. We're gonna jump right back in, and then we will continue and wrap up this episode. Like I said, I know it abruptly shut. I had to abruptly stop, but we're gonna finish up. We're gonna close it out, and then we'll go about um our daily business as usual, and go from there. Just waiting for him to log back on. There it is. What's up, bro?
Yo.
You can hear me?
Can you hear?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We good? Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, so we're back. I started just like a minute early so I can because I just mentioned that it briefly cut off. I had to briefly stop because duty calls, and I had to fucking jump and run, and then and here we
Yeah.
are. We're gonna so the sentence actually got cut off. I was saying, because we're talking about opportunity cost. When people see this, it's gonna hopefully like flow pretty well, so they know we're gonna be like, yeah, we know you're talking about opportunity cost. Just but
Hopefully.
right, no kidding, right? Uh, but the sentence like that I got cut off at was the money that you think is not significant. So to continue, the money they think is not significant. Because I was using the example of, let's say you use $15 per fast food meal or whatever meal eating out per person. If you do that times 10, that's $150. And then from there, what we don't realize, and I'm just guilty because I like fast food too, right? Is like the and we can probably go in because we've talked about compounding interest, right? But the same thing occurs with just money in general, like the compounding of $150
Mhm.
every 10 months. That it can give you some leeway. And one thing I thought of as I was re-listening, so we can continue this, was like, even if you think about, so if you're already paying, let's say you're putting $500 for your debt, right? You're $250,000 in debt, so you're putting $500 to your debt, which is good. So imagine you cut out that $150 of eating fast food and whatnot. Well, that's now $650. So it is going to
Mhm.
help you, and if you compound that over and over again, like it will add
Yep.
up.
It's
Um,
funny that you mentioned debt because I think just yesterday, um, I was working on something for a client for their debt obligations.
hmm, mhm,
Some of them were like installment on an installment plan. The other one was revolving lines of credit. And so I was trying to do some research, like how do I put something together to help them kind of summarize their debt and see how long it'll take them to pay down these debts.
hmm.
And something I ran into, and I forget who was the one that kind of like developed it. I don't think it was Tony Robbins. But someone like in that
In
circle,
that, okay, yeah.
they were talking about something called a snowball debt calculator,
Hmm.
which is
Okay.
basically you have like your credit lines, and then I don't remember. Don't quote me because I don't remember if this is accurate. But the person that was describing it um, was talking about eliminating their smallest balance first,
Hmm.
and that
Okay.
payment, once they eliminate that balance, add that payment to the next balance. So what you're basically doing is you're getting rid of like the mandatory monthly payments, and as that principal is paid down, you apply that to the next one and the next one, and so that's where the snowball effect comes. Your monthly payments towards your debt never go down just because you paid down a principal. You just basically double down on the next one, and that's how you pay it off faster. So if your payments to credit cards are like, let's say, $1,000 a month, you pay down one. Yeah, you pay down
Right, but
one.
that's what it is. It's
Like
reality of
let's
it.
say
Continue.
$100. Yeah, say like let's say $100 was to like the smallest balance.
Hmm.
So now instead of your payments going down to 900, you apply that $100 to the next smallest balance,
Yeah.
and it just snowballs
And
until
which is,
yeah,
snowballing is it's still the same. It's basically the same thing as compounding, because we're just building on that.
yeah,
That's super interesting. So that was the main. I think that was one of the main things that I wanted to, and I'm glad you brought that up, because like, okay, yeah, there's different ways to talk about it, but it's still the same thing. And in this case, we're talking about debt, but there's so many ways to go about opportunity cost. And that was one thing I did want to
yeah,
highlight, was that's where we were transitioning, because we were using your example from Xcelligence, at Xcelligence on Instagram. um, but it's like, it's not only business focused, because it's like we can use we can use it. I'm just reiterating, because we are getting ready to wrap up this episode. I wanted to do this, as far as like opportunity cost. And one thing, and I no shit spent a few hours trying to find this freaking quote, because I got so immersed in, because Elon Musk, there's a quote that I read from Elon Musk, and that's what I was looking for, because I wanted it verbatim, but I would just summarize what he said. But he's like, as an entrepreneur, he said, when being an entrepreneur, not versus being an employee, but when he can kind of make his own rules and his own, like, his obligations. Obviously he's so like engulfed into like Tesla and space, like, he's so engulfed in it anyway. So it's not like he's
mhm,
like taking time off like deliberately. But he's like, the difference is, and this is part of it. The difference is like if it's his son's birthday or his child's birthday, well, he can go do that. Like he can say, hey, I'm done for right now, whatever that time is allotted. But he's like, but as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you can do that. Versus as an employee, usually your schedule, your daily, your life schedule kind of revolves around the
Yeah.
the other wherever you're working, whatever you're doing. That was one thing that
Yep.
I wrote down because I was re-listening. Like, yeah, no, and that's one thing that I remember last night. And I wrote it down to make sure I mentioned it because like that's the difference, and that's one of the cool things. It's like so we are going to come back to the business side of opportunity costs. Like, well, that's also part of it. It's like you kind of get to set your own rules. As long as you're going down that goal and you're on a path that you want to be on. Hey, it's your kid's birthday, it's your wife's birthday, your husband's birthday, whoever, your uncle, your grandma, your grandpa, whoever, literally whoever, your best
Yeah.
friend. Hey, hey, we work this many. Hey, we're gonna work this many hours for this week because I need this time off or whatever. Or hey guys, how about we work 20, let's just say let's we're gonna work 20 hours for the next 3 days. But hey, I want to give you we're gonna be doing less than half a day. The next 3 days for
Right.
these are just random examples that like how easy it can be to show opportunity costs and what it could mean for you in your daily life and life balance with work.
Yeah. I will add because, and this is something I think about every time I post on Xcelligence,
Okay.
because a lot of the stuff that I post on there is geared towards being an entrepreneur or motivating people to like be entrepreneurs, be their own boss.
Yeah.
But I will say that being your own boss or being an entrepreneur is not for everybody.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah. Yeah.
it shouldn't, and no, not everybody should be feel like obligated to like want to do their own thing.
Right.
And I kind of always feel bad for like basically posting stuff like that, like, be an entrepreneur, be motivated, don't let
Right.
others tell
Right.
you
Right.
no. But it really isn't for everybody. So I think it's important to see that too. So, now that we're talking about opportunity cost and having that liberty to kind of do what you want or like, prioritize other things at different
Yeah.
times, I think it's also important for employers to do that with their employees.
Yeah.
So if you're an
Yeah.
employee and you have another obligation outside of work that you have to meet, I think it's important for employers to also be aware of that.
Yeah, and we could I can use the word empathy. Like, hey, how would you feel if you were in that seat? You as the business owner, as the CEO, as the
Yeah.
boss, the manager of that team or whatever. It's like, hey, how would you freaking feel if you were in that seat? Like, how that's where I would drive home. I would like to drive home too. Is like empathy. Like that's where you need to have empathy as a leader, as a good manager. It's like, hey, because I'll bet you you're the boss man or boss woman, and time comes, hey, it's your child's birthday, it's your whoever's event, and hey guys, I'm gonna thanks for your hard thanks for maybe you're a good person, thanks for your hard work, but I gotta leave now. I got this obligation that's involving my family and my personal
Yeah.
time. Um,
Yep.
yeah, no, yeah, that's a good because I didn't write that. I didn't write that part down, but yeah, that because I was thinking about not everybody's set out to be an entrepreneur, but there's so many leadership qualities that you can take from yourself and you kind of run with it. But I always think because I'm especially like the young adults, hey, no shit, I've actually talked about this for a while. Is like the fact that like these trades that yes maybe there's ways to go about it, but like AC, plumbers, like drywall construction, like there's so many things out there, and it's hard. It's honest work. I mean, that's my opinion. I think I did like a cement slab or two ever, and like that was enough for me to learn like learn my lesson of like, hey, I it's not that I couldn't do it if I absolutely had to, but hey, I think
It's not
can
for me.
find I can find other means to make a living,
Yeah.
to want to make a living, and then and do that. And that's one thing I'm grateful for. My uncle's actually the one who did that because I went to go technically work for him, who paid basically a contractor good, and I worked with the contractor for the couple of days, and we did all this work, and I was like, yeah, no, that was enough for me. But hey, no shit, we still need plumbers. Like I don't think we have any robots yet that can do plumbing and help
Yeah.
foundations of housing. Yeah, right. And because I don't know, I mean, that's too far out of my vision. I'm not the one trying to
Mhm.
create that, but it's like, hey, for now, we do need all those hands-on things, and that's perfectly okay if you like getting your hands dirty. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Being a plumber. The last thing I want to mention as far as this, and we're done, is so like obviously, and I have mentioned this on my like the individual episodes, but where I've been grateful, I've been super grateful for the listeners I have had and the growth that has kind of happened. Because so I was looking at the number. So in 2017 when we started, we had the podcast had 2,032 listens in the year. And that's because that was actually consistent and like, okay, cool, consistency. So then the next year had 3,875, which is almost double. It's not quite double, but it's almost double. Well, in 2019, when all my plans changed and I didn't start posting again until like late, probably like November, December, probably December of 2019, a little bit of the beginning of 2019, and then obviously there's a long break, and then so there's 17, so it went down to 1,700. And 2020 when I started like, hey, I actually got to do this. But even from 2019 to 2020, 1,993, and then in the 4 months so far, I'm already at 1,500. So like, there's that little bit of like increment. Besides opportunity cost, what I was gonna bring up is like just like the compounding. Like, hey, if you kind of put time into this, like, and if you feel strong enough at whatever goal you're aiming at, like, hey, this goes back to that progress, like of being an employee and being satisfied with being satisfied with $100,000 a year versus when you have your own business and if you're pushing and you're grinding and you're pursuing, and then you reach that 5 years down the road, you remember you're doing 25, 15, 10, but then you have 75, you find that thing that clicks for the consumer. And then you jump to 75, and then you reach that 100,000, then you just that snowball going. We can go back to that snowball effect. And it's like, I know the significant fact, I guess that's how I'm labeling it, of the fact that I've only had 11,000 listens in 4 years, but there's been so many, like, not bumps in the road, just things that I've had to do and sacrifice the podcast. But now I'm like, I'm on this road again, where it's like, hey, this podcast is significant for me, and like I'm seeing that as long as I'm staying consistent and going from there, it's like, okay, cool. Like there's that already that incremental growth that I'm seeing in these beginning 4 months of 2021. Considering everything else that I've been doing and traveling from coast to coast and all these other little things, like, hey, like I'm okay with it because I know that I'm trying. Like this is something that I have to pursue. This is something that I have to pursue and go from there. But now we're good. Now we can close out this episode. If you could plug like your website, and obviously at Xcelligence on Instagram, if you want to spell that out for people so they can be able to follow and.
At Xcelligence on Instagram, Xcelligence, and then you can visit our website at xcelligence.co. I think you can find us on Facebook and even LinkedIn too. I don't normally, I think, plug those when I get to on here.
Yeah.
But I think only lately have I kind of been posting here and there on those platforms. So yeah. Go ahead and post Xcelligence, and then our website, xcelligence.co.
Bet. And yeah, and the cool, and like you'll find, and like what I like is like you'll find posts like that, like the one we went over today is opportunity cost. It's like, hey, there's stuff like that, and there's Pareto, there's different principles that are on there as well. That they're good bites because they're very specific examples of how you can use this, in numbers and business and money, but then you can take that out to your daily life as well, the way we try to explain it today, and just using it in your daily life. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Don't you can follow us at movie15_podcast, emails, support the podcast. There's some merch online, everything's in the show notes. Don't forget to take care of yourself mentally and physically. Take care of your teams, lead from the front. And yeah, until next time, we'll see y'all very soon.